Hey. And I receive your I am coming.
Sorry, it's taken a bit long.
It's
Um,
okay.
yeah. Thank you once again for joining us for another episode of African Women Empowerment Network. Today, we are privileged and honored to have with us Dr. Penny Njoroge. She is a she's born again and living on God's second chance by grace. Dr. Penny is located in Birmingham, Alabama. She's a mother of 6 precious children and 5 priceless grandchildren. She's a passionate mental health provider and advocate. She's on a mission to and to unmask mental illness and to unmask and demystify mental illness. Dr. Penny is also a domestic violence survivor of 30 years and has survived 2 attempted suicide. She's a trained telehealth, a specialist, a life coach, a trained mediator, and conflict resolution specialist. She's a fellow of the American Institute of Stress. She's an award-winning motivational speaker, a recipient of many awards like the Hospital Heroes Award, Birmingham Mayor's Hidden Heroes Award for Youth Mentoring, Kenya's Head of State Commendation for Community Service. She's also a published author of Healing Hope for Your Grief and Bereavement. Dr. Penny is globally and locally traveled. She's a regular TV and radio presenter on various topics like domestic violence, alcohol, and substance abuse. She is a substance abuse, marriage, and family. She's also board certified death and grief therapist. She's the founder of Angel Counseling Services both located in Birmingham, an ordained minister and board certified chaplain. I am Catherine Jenga. I'm in UK. Let us know where you're joining us from. Thank you, Dr. Penny, once again for sitting with us. It's a privilege and honor always to have you on our show. Thank you. Maybe you can introduce yourself for those who do not know you.
Thank you, Catherine. Once again, it's a humbling honor to be in this Women Empowerment Conference, because as a woman, I have needed empowerment, and I know that when we live for God, He does empower us. I'm born again, like you said, and I have walked through life. Just because I got born again in high school did not exempt me or forgive me from going through life like everybody else, and that is the reason I went through the issues that led me to becoming a therapist and a counselor. I want to thank you for opening your forum. And I speak a blessing for you, because when you empower women, you empower children, you empower husbands, you empower families. And you know what? By empowering women, we empower a nation that is willing to see the value in women. And so the ministry you are doing, the conferences you are doing, and empowering women to come and listen and talk to one another. And I invite them, please ask your questions, please share as we talk, so that we address the issues that for a long time we have hidden. We all have masks. She talked about unmasking and demystifying mental illness. Many of us, like me, I think she said I suffered from depression. That is why I have become bold enough to say I do not hide the fact that for 25 years in my youth, as a young professional, as a young wife, as a young mother, I went through 25 years of depression as a result of domestic violence and abuse. And I say this, I do not bring these things because I'm proud about them, but I bring them to tell the devil he made a mistake when he attacked me with them, because by God healing, he has given me the empowerment, the willingness, the boldness to come and speak to my sisters and my brothers that depression is not a death sentence. Depression is not a committal for prison. You can choose out of depression and live again. I feel called to build bridges, to give hope, building bridges between pain and failed past, to healing, to restoration, to victory, new beginnings. I am encouraging us to talk about it, bring our testimonies, because By your testimonies, by sharing, we are healing other people. You become a
Yeah.
healing element. You
Yeah.
become a doctor in your way. I do not use my doctorate when I speak from my testimony. I share my life, my failures, my pain, to tell you that life is not over just because you're going through what you're going through today, but this could be a beginning of a new life. You have to take a step and say, I choose to fight. I choose not to quit. I choose to walk along other women and men who are fighting out of this. Thank you, Catherine, for bringing me in.
Thank you, Dr. Penny. I like what you say. You say that depression is not a prison sentence, because
No.
first of all, and also when you said about people need to talk about it, because sometimes people find it difficult, the shame, the stigma, of talking about depression. I like what you said. It's not a prison sentence. And let's talk about it, because when you hide it, and the more you're hiding it, the more it's festering in you. And actually, there is help out there. And
Yes.
so I'm going to start by asking you, Dr. Penny, what is depression?
Depression, let me start by saying that none of us is exempted from depression. It doesn't matter how old or young you are. It does not matter how rich or poor you are. We see the wealthiest people here in Hollywood. You all know that Hollywood is the hub for movies, for actors. It's a wealthy place, it's a place where they make a lot of money, but they are also not exempted. We have lots of suicides there and many other places. What is suicide? I mean, what is depression?
Mm.
Depression is when you find yourself, you have no, you lose interest in life. You used to run, you don't feel like running anymore. You used to walk and you used to exercise. You have no interest in that. It's also a deep sense of sadness. You
Yeah.
wake up and you're feeling sad. I can't explain. How are you doing?
Mm.
I'm okay. You know, how many times do you tell people, I'm okay? And you know you are not okay. You are feeling sad. You are feeling irritated, irritability, hopelessness. Nothing looks good on you. And then you become very hard on yourself. So that is what depression is all about, when life has no meaning, when nobody seems to be doing good to you. You're trying everything, but you feel helpless. You feel
Yeah.
hopeless. You're so sad for no explained reasons. And sometimes that is when we start, it's a time when we isolate ourselves. And when you start feeling
Yeah.
that I don't want to go to church, I don't want to go to, to parties. You used to be a party animal and you don't even want to attend anymore. There is a
Mm.
wedding, you used to enjoy weddings, you don't feel like going. So those are places, those are signs that will tell you that something unusual is happening. Please pay attention. Please don't just ignore that, because when you ignore that, it takes you to a lot of places, to drinking, to doing drugs, to oversleeping, overeating. And eventually, some of us have gone all the way to attempting suicide. When you are
Yeah.
so, when you're hiding, when you don't want people to know what you're going through, and it goes from bad to worse. And I say that when you leave it for too long, like anything else, it becomes complicated. It
Yeah.
becomes too hard for you to deal with. And
Mm.
you also become very hard to live with. If you're married, you become untouchable. Your husband, your wife have a hard time dealing with you. Your children want a hug. You're not ready for that. So depression changes you inside out.
Depression changes you inside out. And you
Yes.
said it's when life has no, when someone experiences sadness that they cannot explain where it's coming from, they start
Yes.
feeling life has no meaning. So what are, I know you've mentioned a few, but what other symptoms, Dr. Penny, can someone look out for? Because I know there are moments when we do feel sad in life. It's not all the time that we feel this way, but there are moments that when we feel sad. But what are the symptoms that people should look out for in depression?
Some of the symptoms, you will find that you don't want, you feel sleepy, but you can't sleep. A
Mm.
persistent sadness, anxiety,
Mm.
mood swings, emptiness, You used to be a very happy person, you used to be a very positive person, but suddenly you are a pessimist. Everything is negative. You are irritable. There is a sense of worthlessness. You're feeling helpless.
Yeah.
You're guilty of things you can't even explain. The devil has, and I always say the devil has a hand in this. He brings
Mm,
guilt of things that you did to people. They forgave you, but they got stuck in you. There is loss of pleasure. There is loss of interest in hobbies and activities that you enjoyed in the past. You are restless. At times we even find, we used to say that old people talk to themselves. But when you're depression, it doesn't matter whether in your 20s, in your 40s, in your 80s, you find yourself moving and talking unusually slowly.
oh,
You become very difficult to deal with. You lose your appetite. Or sometimes it is the other way around. You are overeating. You find a mother or a father fighting over food with their children and you are laughing at them.
yeah.
Pay attention to that. When you see a mother fighting over children with their husband and the children, and the same thing with the husbands, a husband comes home and he says, I want whatever has been cooked, give me half of it. Don't just blame them. Think again. Look at that. Sometimes you are losing weight, at other times you are gaining weight, and people are thinking, oh, this one has HIV. It has nothing to do with HIV. They are losing weight because they are depressed. What about
Mm,
overweight? And you look at them and you think this one does nothing else but eat. Think again, look beyond that weight. And sometimes for us, as we grow older, you have aches and pains. Your back is aching, your neck is aching, your
mm,
shoulders are aching, you have digestive problems, and the list goes on.
okay.
Please, you know yourself. And this is why I say you need to know yourself so that when things start changing, please,
Mm,
it is no more, the time has come when we have to pay attention to any symptom. Now we have
mm,
COVID, we have depression that goes with it. Please pay attention to the changes in your body because they could be a sign of greater things that than you're thinking.
okay.
When you find
That's
yourself angry for nothing, yes,
Yeah. So what you're saying is being irritable. I mean, irritated quite easily. People
yes,
experience low mood, feeling sad, irritable, angry, having less energy to do certain things, loss of interest
mhm,
in their enjoyment, things that they used to enjoy. People become tired more easily. They suffer insomnia. They lose their appetite or may even eat more, and even having low self-esteem.
yes.
So what causes depression? What causes depression?
There are many causes of depression because look at your environment. Is it a healthy environment? Again, you may have gone through loss and grief. We like lately, and let's look at us in the diaspora. Your mother or my mother and my father died in Kenya. I'm not able to go and bury them. Okay, I raise money and I send for my brothers who are back in Kenya but I don't deal with that. I didn't have closure with that, and I'm
Mm,
using myself as an example. Maybe you are there. You've lost a loved one. You never did what you needed to do to come to closure. You have
mm,
guilt that I didn't go to bury my mother or my father or my brothers. You have that guilt, and people around you asking you questions. Kwani, what is so good in America or in UK or in Russia that you are so stuck there you cannot even go and bury your loved ones? And they have no idea
yeah,
what is
yeah,
going on in your life. And the other
yeah.
one, you might have experienced trauma. You went through a motor vehicle accident or a job related accident.
Mm,
You went for treatment and we are given only maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks and they assume you are well again. You go back to work, you are hurting, you are traumatized, you have memories of that trauma, but you have
mm,
not dealt with that. Many of us don't even go for grief counseling. We don't go for trauma counseling because, and this is another issue with our culture. I'm asking us, we are saving money for shoes and bags and suits. It is the high time we started investing in your own life.
yeah.
When there is need for counseling, please go for counseling. I'm a telehealth counselor. I can counsel with people from the world. and there are many others around you. Call somebody, talk to somebody, please. When you have a wound, like when you have a broken bone, you go for that bone to be fixed. Why don't you have your mental health fixed?
Yeah.
You are taking care of every other part. When you have indigestion, you take care of that. But when you have something up here, we ignore that. Oh, I just have a headache, maybe because of my tummy. It could be something more than the problems in your tummy that are causing it out here. You have trauma, you have bad memories, you've been abused, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and battering, and you don't deal with these things because, like everything else, I don't want to talk about being abused because it is shame. I'm a minister. I'm an executive somewhere. That is trauma you are hiding. And so those are some of the causes. And the other one is health issues. I know for a fact when my health started going down, I feel like I'm not productive enough. There is shame in me. I start blaming myself. I start blaming my employer. And so there is, a complication of things. The loss of your self-esteem. All these things complicate your life. But remember what? As Christians, what do we say? Catherine, how are you doing? I am
I'm well.
blessed and highly favored. I am well. And I always ask, really? There is something you are hiding by putting it out so loud, that you are highly blessed. What are you covering? What are you masking? And so there are so many causes of depression. Lack of this, poverty is another cause of depression, by the way. Those of us who grew in the slums and in other places of poverty, when you see other children eating this and wearing this and going to this school and that school, it leaves you feeling less than good. And it caused us depression, but during those days, we never talked about it. It was a survival mode. But it catches up with you, in later years when you start thinking, had I gone to that school or to that school or to that college, had I gone to college when I needed to go to college, I instead of waiting until I was 56 to go to school, I started asking, what opportunities did I lose as I waited for 41 years? Where are you? What are you regretting? Regrets in life, disappointments, the unforgiving, your unforgiving spirit. Yes, people have hurt you, no doubt about that. But you realize that when we refuse to forgive, we incubate that. It becomes poison to you and to me. I know that for a fact because after going through my separation for 6.5 years, all I did was cry, regret, bitterness, unforgiveness, until my mother reminded me, Penny, you'll never get out of this hole. I was stuck. You'll never get out of this darkness until you forgive, not for him, but for me. I cannot explain what that meant for me when I finally said, you know what, for my sake, for my healing, I'll let go, let God deal with that. And remember, God says, the battle belongs to God.
Yeah.
He wants to fight your battles. But when you come to God like this, because here there is anger, there is bitterness, and a lot of other stuff, when you go to God like this, where do you expect him to place your healing and your forgiveness? As a minister, when you come to me, you cannot come to me like this expecting communion. You have to come like this, and that is the way God expects us to come. God, here I come, just as I am, like the Bible says. So let go.
Yeah. I want to take you back to where you talked about our culture and not recognizing mental health as important and as the need, as finding the need for it to, like you said, if someone has a broken leg, and I always give this example as well, if someone has a broken leg, we will quickly take them to hospital. But if their mental health is not well, we ignore it. In fact, sometimes we find that there's shame about someone's mental health not being good. And we have these cultural things that we say somebody must have done something with them, or we even ignore. I would highly emphasize, it's important, just like it's important to treat your body physically, it's also important to treat your to look after your mental health. Like you said, Dr. Penny, we ignore that, but it's quite important. Let's make it okay for people. Let's normalize people going for seeking help for their mental health, mental well-being as well. What do you think, Dr. Penny?
You put it very, very well. And I'm thinking again back to that broken leg. When we see somebody in a cast, we are very sympathetic. They are getting into a matter to everybody is giving them a seat. But this person who is depressed, they are shunning you. Remember the word in our culture where we call people mad. Leave that one. She's mad. And because you're calling me mad, and in our culture we call them mogoroki mwenda wazimu, the mad one. What makes you think I want you to be calling me mad? So I will hide it, I will cover it. But you don't know that when I'm covering it, I'm torturing my husband, I'm torturing my wife, I'm torturing my children. So when we do not, and when we neglect this person because they are wearing a cast, they are wearing the shame, they are wearing the isolation, the rejection, they go out further and further away. They may never go to the mental health institutions, but they did not even need to go there. All they needed was somebody to tell them, you know what, you are depressed, and having lost your mother, having lost your job, having lost your house to foreclosure, I don't blame you for feeling the way you do. Acknowledging that person, affirming them, admitting, helping them to admit that, you know what, I've gone through enough trauma. There's every reason, just helping them to justify that this is not imaginary. Don't blame me, don't blame them or blame me for being depressed. That is why for 25 years, I covered it up. Today, I decided to wear a headscarf because I did not even want today I wear it as a symbol of you can see it has some gold. It is a symbol of reminding myself that when I wore it in the past, it was a mask. But today I wear it as a symbol of my victory. To remind me that I wear it for a very different reason, as a fashion. But in the past, I covered it because I felt like people were saying what was going. I couldn't even do however much I wanted to do my hair, I couldn't do it right because I felt like people were looking at me and seeing my madness, as I called it. So I covered it. But guess who was hurting? It was my children. I went deeper and deeper into my mess. So, and I always say, don't think I enjoy sharing this, but I am enjoying because I know somebody somewhere is in that same seat where I was. I want to assure you today, I am okay, I am healed. And when I say I'm blessed and highly favored today, I say it meaning it. To tell you that God has healing, to tell you that the God who fought my battles and brought me out of it, gave me education from the age of 56 to equip me to do what I do today, to help other people, to be a counselor, like what Catherine is studying, so that we go to God can equip us. So when somebody is doing mechanic, you honor them. I did counseling because I wanted to be a doctor for souls. I want to be able to counsel people and tell you it is well. There is no shame in you being mentally sick. There is no shame in your soul being sick. When there is when somebody has a sick heart, we care for them. We don't allow them to carry loads. But there are souls that are carrying much more. We need to be available for them. We need to change our attitude. Counseling needs to be honored, just like the mechanics, just like that doctor who is I know the reality is that people have a lot more respect for a psychiatrist because you give you a pill. I will not give you a pill, and I'm proud of that because I will listen with you. I'll walk through your problem with you. I will facilitate for you to equip yourself and get out of this hole. So I honor what I do. I honor my fellow counselors. I honor my fellow therapists like Catherine and many others. Because God has called us to do something that will help other people to get out of this. Counseling is needed. and it should be available for others. Don't be ashamed to say, I'm spending $100 or $200 for counseling instead of buying a car. Guess
Yeah.
what? When you equip your soul, you are
Yeah.
preparing yourself and equipping yourself to be a good mother, a good father,
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
good student, a good employee, a good professional. It doesn't matter what you are wearing, but when your soul is healed, you are a better person.
I must acknowledge, Dr. Penny, 25 years is a long time to be, I mean, to go through depression. 1 year and another one passes by. 25 years, that must have been really challenging for you.
It was very challenging, and the most challenging that it was that I couldn't even talk about it. I think the hardest thing was knowing that I'm suffering. I would cover it. And knowing that because the longer I lived in it, the worse I noticed that I'm not the only one who is sick, but I keep on saying that my greatest regret is
Yeah.
knowing and remembering what I saw it doing to my children. I wanted to be a good mother to my children. And when the reason I got suicidal, every time I would notice the damage it was doing to my children and how it was incapacitating me, not necessarily as an employee, because at work I would cover it up.
Yeah.
In the public, I was counseling. In the public, I was doing this, that, and the other because I wanted to make sure that nobody will ever suspect. But the hardest thing for me was facing the reality that this could cost me my children, and for the value that I put on my children and my family, that was the hardest. And knowing that it might even take my life, that was the hardest thing. So it was a long life. But again, when I look back, it gives me a certain assurance that yes, there is a God in my life and in your life. When nobody else knows what you're going through, remember that God knows all about it.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
fights for you, because it was not the medicine. I would end up in Nairobi hospital on and off. But really what kept me going is knowing, and my mother's prayers, and my mother reminding me that you need to keep praying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the fighting, another thing that kept me going was the fighting spirit, not
Yeah.
willing to quit. I knew I had to live to be sure that I was there for my children, even if I lost everything. And literally, that is what happened in the end. I walked away empty-handed, but with my children. And
Yeah.
today, I thank God for that. There were long years, but there was a God
Yeah.
that kept me
Yeah.
going.
So you said that you gave an example. Said one of the factors that can cause depression is the environment. So for yours, perhaps you can say it came through your environment, having gone through abuse, and then
Yes.
the effects and the trauma of the abuse led to the depression. So Dr. Penny, I want to take you back to that bit of our culture. You know, we're very passionate about our culture, and I think one of the things that we need to do as a culture is we need to start acknowledging that people have emotions. I think that's quite important, because like you say, I was talking to my tutor the other day, and I say to her, in my culture, we rarely talk about emotions, and if we acknowledge, it's the happy ones, but the ones that are not happy and I mean are not good, we sort of ignore them, or we don't want anything to do with them. You know, for example, you might find, why are you angry? Why would you be angry? What would make you angry? But at the end of the day, this person is experiencing anger, and the more we suppress these emotions, the more at one point it will be like a pressure cooker, and they'll burst. So my tutor was asking me, is it because you don't have a language for it, or what's the problem? And I said, no, I think we just don't acknowledge them. We look at them like a bad thing. So if I said I'm angry, I don't know who I can express my anger to. And even it doesn't have to be bad anger. It would be just saying this thing, because of this, I feel angry. But we don't acknowledge that. What would you say to that, Dr. Penny?
That is very real, and you have put it in a very strong manner. And when you now add our culture and then the let's call it Christianity, we are supposed, I'm born again and I'm supposed to be a happy-go-lucky woman. That is the picture that people have given us. Yes, because I'm a happy-go-lucky woman. You're born again. God is. We did not even acknowledge that God. When we weep, when I feel like weeping, I am shamed. Don't you
Yeah.
have faith when you are sick and
Yeah.
as late as
Yeah.
while I'm here? When I'm
Yeah.
suffering with my health, somebody is telling, I thought we prayed for you. Why were you not healed? So it is
Yeah.
questioning my faith. And then you look like you're a weakling. Everybody else is very strong. Be strong.
Mm-hmm.
There is room for being weak.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
room for being broken.
Yeah.
Because consider the things that are breaking you down. Consider what you are going through. Here you are. You married for real. You married for good. You married forever. And things are not going that way. And remember that it takes two to make it work.
Mm.
And so I'm saying this to many people who are out there. You are going through the same thing, and the shame of me being a person in ministry and I'm going through battering and abuse. I'm not going to tell anybody. At any
Mm.
rate, I was actually praying and counseling other people who are going through stuff. They knew me as a counselor. They would come me for it, and I was going through mine, but I would never dare to share that. You know what? I'm helping with you with yours, but mine
Yeah.
is on the rocks.
Yeah.
I was covering up to be a very successful Christian counselor, and that is who I was. We do with the shame in our culture that when you say you are, how many times do you say, I'm actually hurting? And you are told you're making it up.
Mm.
Wacha kujifanya.
Yeah.
Be
I was even
strong.
going to say Kikuyu tia wetua.
Exactly. Yeah, don't make it up. Be strong like everybody else. You're supposed to be an
Yeah.
example. Here I am. I'm a firstborn.
Mm.
I am in ministry. I'm a professional, so I'm supposed to be good, strong everywhere.
Mm.
But nobody gives me the permission to be human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guess what? Until I read Isaiah 1:8, come, let us reason together. Forgot to tell us, come, let us reason together. He knew there was going to be trouble somewhere.
Yeah.
So do you have trouble? Are you discouraged? It's okay. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to
It's
not to
okay
be.
not to be
It's
okay.
okay to be
Yeah.
discouraged, but don't
Yeah.
leave it there. If you are discouraged, look for help. Look for a confidential person who can tell you. Have yourself an accountability friend
Mm.
who you can tell, this is what I am going. This is why I'm feeling guilty. And
Mm.
then the fact that you are feeling weak and the feeling that you are suffering and you can't tell anybody, guess what? It creates guilt. So
Yeah.
it becomes from this to that. Guilt takes you to shame.
Yeah.
Shame takes you to self-isolation.
Yeah.
Isolation takes you to more and more depression,
Yeah.
hiding.
Mm.
And the list that is, so it becomes like you're going from here, going down like this, and before people know it, you are killing yourself or killing somebody.
Yeah.
The mother that you are not, and you may still be there, not even thinking suicidal, but you are helpless.
Yeah.
You cannot even encourage anybody because you're feeling discouraged. But then come to Isaiah 43:18 and 19. God is telling you, I know what you've gone through, but forget it. Let's start afresh.
Yeah.
It is very rare that you have a friend you have to have a very, very close friend who come and tell you, Dr. Penny, I know you've been through hell and back, but you know what, you can make it. You've made it in the past, you're going to
Mm.
make it with this one.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, the friend you have are the ones who tell you, oh, I thought you were a counselor. I thought you were a minister. I thought you were a minister.
But
What are you doing? What are you doing broken?
you're a human being as well.
Exactly. I remain human. I'm a woman in the making. Allow me to be human. Allow
Yes,
your
yes.
pastor to be human. Allow your first ladies to be
Mm.
women who may be going through abuse and battering.
Yeah.
Don't expect perfection from anybody because I'm not perfect. You are not
Yeah.
perfect. And God saying, in your brokenness, I will be your refuge.
Yeah.
He knew these things were going to happen. And then let me just touch on our sons. How many times do you tell your son, men don't cry? That's our culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you harden them, you harden their emotions. You talked about the lack of emotions. When you
Mm,
cannot deal with their emotions, what are you doing? You are subduing them. You push
mm,
them, you become withdrawn. You are hiding because I want to get to make a public impression.
yeah.
But guess what? That is hardening on the inside, and one day, poof,
Yeah.
you explode in all the wrong places. You explode
Pressure.
to the wrong people. You explode at
Mm,
work. You get
yeah.
sacked for that because they
Yeah.
never saw it coming. It
Yeah.
brings a double layer of shame.
Mm,
So
yeah.
what is the
Yeah.
best thing? Please do not suppress your emotions. Please
Mm,
don't hide things that you need to deal with. You have a your friend has a broken leg, take them to the emergency room. This person who is looking depressed and everything, please help them identify a good fitting counselor.
yeah. Yeah.
Encourage them, look at it that be aware that by helping them to hide, you are helping them to incubate a snake in their lives, and one day that snake will bite.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I want to add on that bit about being vulnerable. I also do know that I think people, we need to realize that there is strength in vulnerability, you know, there is strength in vulnerability for someone to come out and say, you know what, I'm going through a hard time, things are not as I hope they are. And perhaps they are going through, like you say, they feel sad. There is strength in that because I know as Africans, we are raised to be strong and we mask everything, we hide everything. But there's also strength in being vulnerable, coming out and saying, I'm going through a hard time. And also, I like what you say that nobody gives you permission to be human. So perhaps maybe we need to give ourselves permission to be human. One thing that I've discovered lately, and I keep preaching it, perfection is fake. Perfection is fake. We've had this analogy for a long time about perfectionists. So we end up living this life of wanting to be perfect in everything, in the midst of which we're giving ourselves a hard time, you know. But perfection is not something that's there. It's progress, not perfection. You work on yourself progressively. There is no way you're achieving perfection.
Yes.
And I like the way Dr. Penny said about men, how we raise our boys, men don't cry. But we have to remember that these boys also are created with emotions. These men have emotions, but we've taught them to cover them, to mask them. And like you said, at the end of it all, somebody just bursts, or they find ways of coping. They may end up drinking, doing drugs, you know, because they are humans as well, you know. They are humans as well, or sometimes you find the trauma they experience, they share it like in times of in a marriage through abuse, you know. They are humans as well, and they were created with emotions. So Dr. Penny, I want to ask, my next question is, can depression be treated?
Yes, it can be treated like any other disease. Depression can be treated. And you said it very well, not through perfection, but through progress.
Mm,
It will demand a lifestyle change. Go, and I always encourage my clients, let's go down, help me understand what triggered your depression.
yeah,
Find out what are your triggers, what makes you sad.
yeah.
What is an underlying problem that is in your life that you never dealt with? What
Mm,
happened when your mother died, when your boyfriend left you, when your husband left you? And
mm,
because especially after divorce, the husband or the man or the wife want to say, you know what, I can make it all by myself. And you start moving and you think you can make it, but there is a wound inside of you, like you said. There are wounds that continue festering in us until we deal with those festering wounds out of grief, out of brokenness. You have a terminal illness that has left scars in you that nobody sees. You've gone through cancer, and we are talking about, oh, she is cancer. You have recovered from your cancer, but there's some residue that things will never go back to normal, and you keep on worrying about what if it recurs. What if this? And at the moment you start feeling a symptom, you go back into that, it grips you in fear. So the recovery is find out what are the triggers, what brings back those memories. Who hurt you that you have not forgiven? Not for them, again, I say, who do you need to forgive? Not for them. If they are not remorseful, go ahead and forgive them for you. What losses have you incurred and you never dealt with?
Yeah.
What guilt do you have? What things do you think you did? And maybe the person you had already forgave you, but you've not forgiven yourself. And so I talk about, like, changes in your life. And then what about what is your support system?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Find, even when there is shame and regret, find 2 or 3 friends, or even one good friend. Pray to God to give you a friend who you can trust, a
Yeah.
friend who can take you just as you are, a friend who will walk with you in your mess and in your good times, so
Yeah.
that you have somebody, a good support system. If it is for grief, look for a grief support group. If you're having problems with your children and it is giving you a lot of pain and grief, talk to other mothers or fathers who are doing well, but people who are not going to judge you and condemn you, or they are drinking because of
Yeah.
ABCD.
Yeah.
Because that is another mistake we do. Because I said, when people go through troubles and trauma and depression, at times it leads into alcoholism. Others go into they start taking drugs. I have pain medication. I start taking more than what has been prescribed, trying to take care of my pain. So when you see people doing these things, please don't jump into conclusion. Have you heard? Can you imagine of all people, Dr. Penny is a drug addict? Can you imagine Dr. Penny is taking a glass of wine when she goes to sleep? Ask me why I'm doing it. Just because I'm a minister doesn't mean I don't have problems. And I'm not saying I do it by the way. Thank God. Because of
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
I have not done it. But I know that things I've gone through, Catherine, I could have
Yeah.
become an alcoholism. I could easily have become a drug addict. God
Yeah.
and God alone. And so when I
Yeah.
see my friends doing it, I don't jump into that conclusion. Again, remember, our coping skills are very different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
environment, your environment and my environment after divorce is very different. The resources you have make all the difference. So please don't say, what is wrong with her? I
Mm,
also have children who have problems and I'm coping. I know you
mm.
are, but your children are not my children.
That's
I know
true.
you
Yeah.
went through divorce and I went
Yeah.
through divorce and I'm not coping. My
Yeah.
past was not like your past.
Yeah.
Maybe you came out with some resources. I came out empty-handed, but with scars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
the scars that we carry from the past are very different. So
Yeah.
the healing process, the management of your depression, it will call for lifestyle changes, attitude changes. If you need medication for your, I mean, if the depression is so bad, I always tell somebody, there could be maybe you need something to maintain you. I'll
Yeah.
counsel you and I'll work with you. But
Yeah.
maybe you need something, go to a psychiatrist or a
Yeah.
doctor to give
Yeah.
you something to manage you. Isn't that true, Catherine? There are
Yeah. It's
people
true.
who need something a little more than counseling. But
Yeah.
do not make that don't let that be your hangover,
Yeah.
because you need to wean yourself from medication to do that, so that your lifestyle changes are
Mm.
longer lasting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I've covered. And then of course the friends, the family you are in, what the family is doing. If you
Yeah.
have do you have a friend you need to let go? By the way, this is where there comes a time you have to ask yourself, is this friend for me or against me? When I'm going through stuff, what kind of things are they saying to me that are causing me to
Mhm.
get angry, that
Mhm.
are blaming me, that they all that every time I'm depressed, they are blaming me and telling me to pull up myself,
Yeah.
like I don't know I need to. Yeah, so watch out who your company, what company you are keeping, even
Yeah.
in the church. Even in the church, don't I do, I am a praying woman, but there are times when you need more than prayer. You need
Yeah.
counseling, you may need medication, you may need a more very, very tangible support. If all you hear from somebody is let's pray and that is all, are you asking me whether I have food in the house? Are you asking me whether my child is going to school or I'm depressed? We don't have rent. We this is winter. We don't have heat in the house. Practical support.
Yeah. Yeah. Practical support. Yeah. Quite
Yes.
important. So I want to acknowledge our guests who are watching. We have Joyce Washira who says depression is not a death sentence. Yes, there's restoration. Thank you. Both my sisters, all these voices are empowering. Then she says, thank you, Dr. Penny, for constantly saying we invest in our mental health. This way, other areas of our lives become healthy. Then she also says, let us acknowledge our emotions. Our culture thinks sadness is a negative emotion. Emotions are just emotions. And we have Judy Malu as well. Thank you, our guest today. We have Dr. Penny. She's a clinical psychologist who's talking to us about depression and suicide. And Dr. Penny has lived this experience. She just said how she was depressed for 25 years. 25 years is a long time. So, Dr. Penny, as we conclude on depression and then we move on to suicide, what risks and complications can depression cause?
There are very, very many risks, and one of the big one is death.
Oh.
And I also want to acknowledge the guests who are watching with us, and because for their encouragement. That Joyce is my sister, and she knows what we have gone through, and so it's good to when you have somebody, and that's why I said, who is your support system? My sister Joyce has been my support system, younger and much younger than I am, but she has been there for me. Who is your support system is very, very critical. People who believe in you. I will not stop by saying this, but have people who believe in you, people who believe in your vision, people who can empower and encourage you when you need it, because you know what? As big as my name is, I have my own weaknesses, I have my own needs, and there's my support system. The closest support system for me are my 6 children.
Yeah.
The way I want to encourage you, give your children, give your grandchildren, give your families, permission to question you, permission to correct you. That is very, very critical, because unless if they are going to fear you and not be able to tell you that, Mom, I think you need to rethink what you're saying. I remember my son telling me, Mommy, the words you used in a conference today would give a very different picture of you. The other day, I changed my Facebook picture, and my daughter told me, Mom, I have not seen that smile for the longest, and that was very empowering.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I've gone through life myself. But when she said that, she gave me that picture. Okay, something good is happening. There are changes. There is transformation. There is healing that is coming out in a different smile. So, going back to the risks, you can get stuck in depression. That is the greatest risk in depression. You can get stuck in your past. You can get stuck in your bitterness. You can get stuck in your anger. All the stuck places is like pigeonholes. I want you to go back in your life and find out how many pigeonholes and what the secret closets in your life, the skeletons in your life. Is it a skeleton of anger? I want you to go back. I'll give each one of us a homework. Go back into your life and look out into your pigeonholes. What skeletons are there that are smelling? They smell in your life. You want to move on, but something smells, and you get pulled back again. A word is said, and you remember, oh, the person who abused me used to call me stupid. That's a skeleton. How do you deal with that? Improve on your self-worth. I am not stupid. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So I am nothing but good. Change your attitude towards yourself. Another risk is believing what other people say about you. Instead of believing what God says about you, He says you are beautiful, you are wonderful, and fearfully made. He says you are unique, You are beautiful. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. But just because Penny says you are good for nothing, remind yourself that's okay. But this is what God says. Find things to counteract
Yeah.
people's attitudes and words about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another risk is not believing in yourself. It matters when people believe in you, but it has to start with you. Even if you can, Carola, Catherine, you told me you believed in me and I know you do. You can tell me all you want, but if it doesn't start here,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
love it when you say that, but it has to start with me because let the best come out of you so that I can come and heap on what you are doing. So there is risk if you don't believe in yourself. Another risk is leaning on people for everything, waiting for people to give you love. Love yourself. Remember, this is your Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Jesus told his disciples, and you are going to preach in Jerusalem, in Samaria, and Judea. This is Jerusalem. So there is risk if you do not love yourself. You can only give what you have.
Yeah.
There is risk if you are busy taking care. I'm a community person. I'm a community leader. I am a giver. I'll give my shirt if I have to. And I used to think that was a compliment. By the way, it is not. Think about it, Catherine. This is winter. I don't know how, and I'm sure you're in the winter also. Yes, I will give. If I give this shirt so that I can bless somebody, so that I can look good to other people, I'm exposing this body to the winter, to the cold.
Yeah.
How long am I going to survive? How many days am I going to survive before you hear I'm in the emergency room instead of doing what I am doing here?
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
It took my child to tell me, "Mommy, you are good, but you are good in the wrong way."
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's why I said give your children permission to correct you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
my baby son who told me, "Mom, I like you are good and I know you, but you are giving time out there. You are in ministry every day of your life, and we are missing you as a mother." That caught me. So I was good out there, but I wasn't good here.
Yeah.
I was building the other people's families out there, but I was not building my. Unajenga kwa wenyewe, unajenga huko nje, lakini kwako kunaporomoka. So so there is also risk in not taking care of ourselves. There is also risk when we are not relating with ourselves properly.
Yeah.
When we allow people and circumstances, this is a very big one. When you allow people and your circumstances to define you instead of you defining who you are. It took me a long time to know that I know my God knows me best, but I also know myself better than anybody else knows me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what God has put in my heart.
Yeah.
But for the longest, for those depressed years, I knew nothing but how useless I was. That I could not be of any use to anybody. And the last straw was when I found that, when I was told that you see how useless you are. Your children are doing A, B, C, D. You are no longer good for anything. You cannot even be good to as a mother. And that for me, I believed that, and I told myself, well, if I cannot be good to my children, the very children I have suffered for, I need to go. So there is risk in not believing and not knowing who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is risk is not knowing your talents and your gifts.
Yeah. Yeah.
This may sound very, very, trivial, but I want each one of us to sit down and think of the things I'm saying. You may think that having money is good out there. It's good, but everything good is in here.
Yeah. Yeah. Our
Self-identification, self-affirmation. Don't wait for people to give you love on yourself first, and show them how to respect you. Show them how to love you. Show people how to treat you.
Yeah.
You are not a junk. God did not create any junk.
Yeah.
So call me a junkie, call me what you want, but I know who I am. I'm a woman of virtue.
Yeah.
Don't be ashamed to say that, because humility is not stupidity, by the way. We are so used to being told you have to be humble, you have to. I want to be humble, and Catherine, I when I say I'm humble, I mean I say that the way I would tell God, God, I want to be humble for you. I want to be humble in front of God. I want to be humble in what I do. But my humility is not a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
Don't take my humility as a sign of weakness. My battery is going, so let me put it on.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. So
Okay.
my humility is, let not that be taken for granted.
Turn it around, Dr. Penny. Oh, that's better.
Okay.
I like what you said about us having self-awareness, self-acceptance, knowing I'm a high advocate of self-worth, because I always preach, if you don't know who you are, then you everybody else will come and tell who you should be, or who they think you should be. And I find that sometimes when I work with women, one thing that sometimes they always say is, oh, I was just waiting for him to validate me. You can validate yourself before you, and I always say to them, unless you validate yourself, and nobody else will validate you. And like you said, we teach people how to treat us, we show people how to treat us. And so when we validate ourselves, when we know who we are, we love ourselves, accept our strengths, our weaknesses, and what we need to work on, we work on if we want to. Then we know our self-worth. Otherwise, if you don't know who you are, people will everybody will be calling you what they think you should be, and you fall for it. And like you said, you might end up not having you have low self-esteem, self-worth. We have a question here, Dr. Penny, before we move on to the next bit. Stacy Nafula asked, is anxiety a precursor to depression? How are the two related?
They go together, almost relevant, because when you get depressed, it can either be starting with anxiety that goes on and on and on. Your anxiety about what about tomorrow, what if I lose my job. You have that anxiety. You are a young mother and you are seeing children all around you going haywire, and you start thinking, what if I don't make it in life? What if this? What if the other? And that the anxiety about everything ends up becoming complicated, and that is when it turns into depression. So in my view, it starts with small anxiety, small things here and there. You are being abused and you're thinking, what if this becomes a lifestyle? That is anxiety. What about if I don't heal? Right now we are dealing, what if I get COVID-19? You're going to the grocery store and you're thinking, what if the people I'm walking around have COVID? And so it becomes a build up. And you're not telling anybody because we don't speak out everything that is going on, and it goes on and it becomes a build up, and before you know it, that's all we are thinking about. And it becomes like it gets stuck in your mind, and when it becomes a constant thought, a constant fear, a constant the same emotion, that is when it becomes a depression, because now it becomes, you sleep with it, you wake with it, you are eating, you can't eat because you're anxious about this and you're anxious about that. That is when it now becomes depression. And that is when you start, when it becomes depression is when you now start getting very irritable, or people get into the house. I heard somebody the people get into her house to visit, and this family, and she throws a temper tantrum. Oh, you shouldn't be visiting me during this time. They didn't know you don't. They know we don't, but they're even not keeping close. But this is your sister. So you see how it can get, out of hand.
Yeah.
She meant well, she wants to be safe, but then it becomes excessive. You are throwing things at people. You are shouting at people. From being anxiety and worried, now you start cursing people. You start throwing words. You start behaving in a very irrational way. That's when you realize, wait a minute, I'm not just anxious, but now I am depressed.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Penny. If we can move on to the next section, and I'm just going to start asking if you can define for us what suicide is.
Wow. Today is a day. It's almost like I am undoing myself, and
So
it
I'm
is
sorry
okay.
about that.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's okay. I want to let's put a face to this thing because we remove it so that we can remove the shame and the stigma.
Yeah.
That is why I do what I do, and I'm okay with that because Catherine, for years I wished somebody would do what I am doing today and what you are doing today when I was going through my own issues. Never talked about them, never asked any question, never. I like what my sister just asked. We never asked anybody, and so we suffered. Even when I was committing, thinking about suicide, I didn't have a name for it. I did not have a definition for suicide. Me, I was doing life. But this is what the suicide is all about. It is a desire to take your life. It is a desire to end it all. It's a desire when you're tired of everything, when you come to the end of the rope. I want out of this life. I am tired. I don't want to continue in this phase, in this mode of life. That is suicide. When you have no desire for life anymore.
Ooh, that's deep. Oh, that's really deep. Oh, that's heavy because it's sad to think that someone can have, and I know it happens, and the therapist in me kicks in right now, and it's sad to think that someone would want to take their life, and it's also sad, Dr. Penny, to know that you've been a victim of two suicide attempts. It's quite sad, very, very sad. I find it sad. I find it sad that things can go that bad that somebody thinks, feels, not thinks, feels that they have no desire to continue with life now.
And you know what, Catherine? When that desire comes, there is also that feeling that I am worthless. Nobody would miss me. I am better out of this life than, and especially when it is of all the people, when it is a mother, that is the saddest moment. When you look at your children and something tells you that they are better off without me than with me. What a
Very
lie.
sad. Yeah.
What a sad it is. Even the thought of having been there makes me sad today that I would have made myself absent from the life of my children. I would have made myself absent from the 5 grandchildren I adore. The fact
Yeah.
that I would have deprived them out of all that
Yeah.
makes you sad all over again. And so, for anybody who is feeling that, I want you to look beyond yourself and look at it through my eyes and see what you would be missing. You are there and you're thinking like I did that nobody cares about you. I want you to hear me and say it's telling you that there's a whole world there that cares about you. They may not have a chance to tell you. People don't even know that you are doing that. If only people would get to see your mind at that time and think that that is what you're thinking. You'll be surprised the strangers who would stop driving, who would stop flying a plane to tell you, please don't do it. We need you. You would be surprised. These children you're leaving behind, you'll be surprised to see them crying and telling, please, mommy, don't ever think about it again because our lives will never be the same. You look at think about the grandchildren who grow without you, not because you had an accident, not because God took you, but because you deprived them of you.
Very sad.
Hear it from me. If I knew somebody today was doing it, I would fly the miles. I would go to Russia, I would go to South Africa. I would go anywhere to tell one person, please don't do it.
Yeah.
Because the world will never be the same without you.
It's true.
Let me use myself, Catherine.
Mm.
Can you imagine the things I do? And I'm saying this I don't know how best to put my humility in this to tell you that I'm not saying this to brag about me, but I'm asking the opportunities that God has given me to touch a life somewhere, to
Yeah.
encourage somebody else. And I was about to take that away from people.
I know. I know.
I regret it every day.
Mm, mm. But I must also appreciate that you must have been in a difficult place, and your experiences were difficult. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a place of no return. When you get there, all you're thinking is how, if you're thinking about the where the devil is telling you that people will be safer without you or better without you, you're feeling like a burden. You're
Mm,
feeling like you are more of a burden to people. And remember, those are devil's whispers.
mm,
Because I have had my children at a time when I was sick, and they said, "Mama, we would rather have you bedridden than dead."
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you don't know how
Wow.
many people would pay their would do everything to have you alive, even if you are wounded.
Yeah.
But you are right. Well, the things that bring you to that point of no return, where you're feeling that everything has come to an end, everything has halted in your life, they are deep, deep, deep pains and sadness. It's a point of total brokenness, a sense of a painful, not just a helplessness and hopelessness, but it is a painful place,
A
a
painful
very,
place.
very a very painful place.
Very. And I want to ask, first let's establish you're okay to continue, Dr. Penny.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Right. You've talked about the pain, and so I would assume those are the suicidal feelings that you're talking about, and how people feel they're in a deep place, and there's no one, they feel worthless. So and I've also highlighted, I mean, appreciated that you are in a deep place. I mean, you'd gone through a really traumatic marriage, ended up feeling so deep, experiencing depression for a long time. But what would you also add on to what causes people to have suicidal feelings?
There is a sense of failure,
Okay.
a sense of being rejected.
Yeah.
Think of I'll give you another a good example that is constantly happening nowadays. Children from single parents marriages, this son or of daughter who have never known their father, and they decide one day, I'm going to look for my father or my mother, and you as a mother or father, you are saying no. And sometimes they decide, I'm an adult and I'm going to do this. And guess what? Sometimes they do everything. They travel from place to place and come across that father or mother. And guess what? He's not interested. She's not interested.
Very sad.
Extreme rejection, extreme rejection.
Yeah.
Or in a family, one child is rejected because everybody else is an A student. This is a lawyer, that is a pilot, that one is, but this one wants nothing but to be a mechanic. That's all I can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this to highlight this in families, that please be
Mm,
careful. Affirm your children where they are, because they are gifted differently. If you have
yeah.
more than two children, remember that they will never be the same, because it
True.
is God's purpose that we are unique. Affirm,
Yeah.
acknowledge your child where they are,
Yeah.
help them to build on what their gift is.
Yeah.
This is happening in families so often that it makes you sad when you realize that.
Mm,
This one who just wants to be a cook, they can help them to be the best cook in a company, in a
mm,
hotel. They
yeah.
make their money that way. This one who wants to be a farmer,
Mm,
help them to do greenhouses, help them to give them one cow and help them to do zero grazing. Your dreams are your dreams, but God's dreams about your children are very different.
yeah.
Acknowledge that and help your child to be who God created them to be. That's one area. In another
Mm,
area is when we start working and people look at you, oh, you are not educated enough. I say this to remove my being a Dr. Penny and tell you that I wasn't a Dr. Penny until at the age of 62. So what tells you? I know what it is to rejected for lack of high education.
yeah.
But the people who were rejecting me and making me fool, as much as most of them knew that I was an Alliance Girls product, that tells you it was still there. I might have not had a degree, but I had that gift. There are
Yeah.
many people whose gifts are dormant in them, but we don't give them a chance.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised nowadays. I look at it that God could have allowed me to go to college like everybody else, but for a reason He didn't. To be able to speak for those employees in your company or the employees in your family who don't have degrees, who you are looking down upon. You are not even helping them to build up.
Yeah.
You are leaving them down there. You don't respect them. You don't even give them the salary they deserve
Yeah.
because they don't have a degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nowadays, I always say, respect me for being Penny,
Yes. Yes.
not for being Dr. Penny.
Yes. 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 That's
Because
true.
the longest part of my life, I was just a mere penny, and I was
Yeah.
okay. But I know
Yeah.
I know the cost. I know the things I went through because I didn't have a degree like everybody else. My family did not have a problem with that, but there are families where this one child, the 3, 4 people have degrees. Some of them are doctors. But there is this one, they barely make it. They are barely scratching it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Please don't look down on them. Help them and uplift them. Help them to become the best of what they can become. They can become the best hairdressers
Yeah.
and make a living.
Yeah. I want
If
to
you
add on
have,
to two.
yeah,
Sorry, Dr. Penny. 2 points before we read the comments. Just 2 points. Society values somebody for what they have, not for who they are. So there's a talk that I do, self-worth versus net worth, meaning your value is in who God said you are, not what you have, our titles, our cars, our degrees and everything. So also, Dr. Penny, you talked about children. I want to add on to that. As parents, we need to treat children as people. Especially in our African community, we don't treat children as people. We don't even acknowledge them. Like the way you are saying, it's important for us to be able to, for our children to come and talk to us, to correct us, and of course with respect, to be able to talk to us, because at the end of the day, they are also human beings. They are also people, and we cannot just not treat them like they are not people, because if you're doing that, just it's important to think, what am I doing to this child? Like the way you were saying, you are rejecting them. And let me read the comments before we continue. Evelyn Kamau says, it's a sad lie from the enemy when you feel your family will be better off without you. That's what you were talking about. And Martin Liria says, very good point about children having different abilities, talents. Love it. Yes, because sometimes also as parents, sometimes we compare our children with other children who probably are doing well in certain areas, but like you said, our children are unique. They all have. Every child has a reason why God put them on this earth. And if I'm pressuring my child to be a doctor, but God did not design my child to be a doctor, it was not His will for my child to be a doctor. He perhaps has put him on this earth for something else. What am I doing to that child? Also, let me read a few more comments. Judy Malu says, it's a dark place and you feel so worthless. And I think we have a question, I'll find it. Then Joyce says, true, Judy, the darkness is immense. Rejection is the worst of all. Blessed says that they've been rejected for many times and they're hurting. That's so very sad. And then Sam says it's a powerful topic. We have a question. I'll reach to it as we continue. So, Dr. Penny, how can someone who's experiencing suicidal feelings help themselves to cope?
it's hard when you're doing it alone. I will start by saying, please do not do it alone, because when you do alone, you kind of continue sinking. And this is why it is good to have a friend, a confidential friend. Tell somebody that, you know what, I'm actually feeling suicidal. And that is why we need to open up our community, open up our families, learn each other, look at the people around you and notice when they are changing, because A lot of times when people feel suicidal, they start hiding. They start writing notes and leaving them everywhere.
Oh.
Yes, because they're looking, a lot of people who commit suicide are crying for help.
Mm.
A lot of people have actually committed suicide and died, but never meant to die, but they went overboard with nobody noticing. And so, as a community, as society, as families, we need to be very alert, watchful, and careful, taking interest on the happenings of the people around us. If you are feeling suicidal, please know that you are. Remember, whatever reason is causing you to feel suicidal, whether you are feeling rejected, remember that when people reject you, God will never reject you.
Yeah.
When you're feeling useless, and I know when you are going through suicidal issues, at times we seem to push God away from our lives. That's because the devil, I say the devil is in this.
Yeah.
There is something so beautiful, so great in you that the devil wants to finish before you remember, before you notice.
Yeah.
And so it is very, very important for you to remember that I am not here by accident. However little, however useless people think I am, start asking yourself, and I say this with apprehension, because when you're feeling suicidal, I think you can't you get to a point where you are not even reasoning rightly. You are not thinking the right way. That's why I'm pleading for people around us. Please be watchful. This person getting suicidal is not even thinking about anything that is good in them. I'm feeling useless. I'm feeling rejected. I'm feeling like people look down on me. But I am encouraging you who is feeling suicidal like I did. For me, when I realized the last time I tried it in 1998 is waking up and realizing that God, you have given me a chance. And it was, I have no explanation. But the thought now when I think about it, because guess what? Life continues. I still get to those moments where life is so tough. I remember a time when I was sick for 6 months, inside, out. 2 months in an ICU, and I was thinking to myself, this pain is excruciating. I mean, excruciating. I don't deserve
Yeah.
this. But
Yeah.
then God would remind me, look at your children. What do you think it is doing to them? Think about other people around you.
Yeah.
If you have your mother and your father, think what your death is going to do to your siblings and to the people around you. I didn't think about that until late. But when you recover, what makes you decide that is the last time I'm ever going to think, because I found it selfish on my part when I recovered from it. But at that time, you are thinking about yourself. So help yourself by talk to somebody.
Mm.
Don't sit somewhere. Don't isolate yourself. Get out of the environment that is causing you to feel that you need to take your life. The more you stay alone, the deeper you get into this hole.
Yeah.
If you love music, make a habit, encourage yourself to listen to some soothing music, to something encouraging. Thank God for the YouTube and the Facebook. Today we have a lot of material that you can listen to that will add value to your life.
Mm.
Remember, and I also want us to remind yourself of the good times that have passed. Today you're feeling like I've lost a job, I have lost a home, I've gone through for a loss of a job, I've gone through a foreclosure. All those things are hard to deal with. But I had to remind myself, if I were to use an example of losing my home, I reminded myself I have lost this home. But for 14 years, this house was a habitation for my family. They would travel from different states and converge at mommy's house. Yes, I lost it, but it served a purpose. Start looking at yourself. When I had this job, I was able to feed my family. I was able to feed to help my mother and my father. I did something good with my life. And maybe if you have lost a job and you had lost a job before that and you found one, and now you are thinking, how many times am I going to lose a job? Remember the time you had lost a job and you found another one. this too shall happen again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Find a way of encouraging yourself and telling you that life is not over until God says it is.
Yeah. True.
God is not done with you. Remember that God has a value for your life. And I want us to encourage ourselves. Go read Isaiah 1:8. It says, come, let us reason together. Come, let's talk. Go
Yeah.
talk to God. If you can't talk to anybody else, please talk to God. He's God, your daddy, God, your
Yeah.
father, God, your refuge,
Yeah.
your provider, your healer, everything. And then the other one is Isaiah 43:18 and 19. Forget the past. Even if you are going, he says, even if you are going through deep waters, I will be with you. If you are going through the fires of life, and they will happen, if you've not gone through them, they will come. Remember, God is with you in the fires. And then the best thing he says, I am doing something new in your life. God is able to restore your life. I
Mm.
said at the beginning that I feel called to build bridges,
Yeah.
to give hope. Remember, God will give you hope. To
Yeah.
bridge a bridge, I mean, to build a bridge between pain, bridge a bridge between your failed past, a bridge towards your healing, towards being
Mm.
restored,
Yeah.
towards victory. God is calling us into all those things. New beginnings. He says, I'm doing something new in your life. Can't you see it? I am making a way where there is no way.
Yeah.
I am making an oasis of life in the deserts of your life. Is it dry? God will rain hope. Are you feeling hopeless? God is your hope. Not Dr. Penny, not Dr. Catherine,
Yeah.
but God. Yes, you
Yeah.
are Dr. Catherine. God, it's coming. I said it purposely.
Thank you.
And that goes for all of us.
Mm.
It's not about being perfect. And yes, people have told you you're good for nothing. Were they there when God created you? Remember God asking Job, were you there when I created the mountains? Were they there when God created you? Do they
Yeah.
even know God's purpose in your life? If you're doing this because somebody has called you names, tell them, but you know what? Why God remind me? God remind my sisters and my brothers, because he says you are beautiful, you are unique,
Mm.
you are beautiful. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are not made in a wholesale machine.
Mm.
Your life has a purpose.
Amen. Amen. So we have a question here as we wrap up, Dr. Penny. Stacy asks, what do you recommend the government should do to sensitize Kenyans on issues of mental health so as to break the stigma that is currently so strong? And she acknowledges that post COVID-19, there could be more cases of increased mental health, mental breakdown as a country in view of the pressure it has brought on families and economic situations. And also, so she asked two questions, and what lessons can we learn from practices in the diaspora?
Unfortunately, diaspora or Kenya or wherever we are, life goes on and it is hurting. Because this COVID-19 has changed lives forever in a way, but we have a God who never changes. I will start with that.
Mm.
The impact of COVID you're right, we have a lot more mental illness, we have a lot more suicidal attempts, we have a lot more domestic violence, we have a lot of
Mm.
negative things because people it's like we've been forced to go to be close together whether we like it or not. One of the things I have talked about, and this is really what I think is the most important thing, is community education.
Ah, okay.
Community education is a big one. Training of counselors, and I always say that even as a minister myself,
Yeah.
there are things I could not do until I trained as a professional counselor. And I encourage my fellow ministers to begin with to train as counselors, because that is where people are. The congregation runs to their pastors and their first ladies and the church leadership. I am encouraging more and more that our pastors and the church leaders, the lay leaders, train as counselors. Why? Because they are first responders.
Yeah.
And I also encourage a lot of us, not just, and even churches to order seminars where we talk about what are the signs and symptoms of depression or suicidal issues. Educate our communities on the signs and symptoms of these things, so that when you see your child doing this and doing that, don't say that, oh, they are throwing temper tantrums. She's always angry. She doesn't talk. She spends most of her time in her room. That's not normal. And we have a habit of letting those things pass. She comes or he comes, they eat, they don't even to eat together with the family. They will come and take their plate and go to their room. These are some of the things as families we need to put in place. Let the family eat together. That could give you a time to look at signs and symptoms of changes in your family members. The government needs to spend more money on mental health. That has
Yeah.
is lacking, whether in the diaspora or wherever. You have to fight. I'm a counselor who is also, interested in working through the non-governmental bodies who can finance counseling for people who cannot afford counseling.
Yeah.
That is the majority one. Think of a person who does not have insurance. They have their finances are between rent and food.
Yeah.
I listened to somebody talk the other day, and here, they were sharing. We are talking about wearing masks and doing this and washing, and and the reasons is call it the person a person, a very regular person said, I know I need to wash my hands. Where is the water if I'm just walking in the streets?
Oh,
Sanitizers. I have to think about buying sanitizer or a loaf of bread for my children.
yeah.
I know I need sanitizer. I know I need a mask. But there are days I have to think about, am I going to buy a mask, or am I going to buy onions and potatoes?
Hmm.
Catherine, that made me sad.
Yeah, it's very sad. Yeah.
It made me very sad. And as I'm talking, I am collecting. And those of us who are in the diaspora, please start collecting masks. Put them aside for whenever you go to Kenya, or whenever you go to any other place where you think that people, we assume you have
Yeah.
one and you have an extra one somewhere, but there is somebody who is having to bargain. Do I buy sanitizers? The cost, the availability, the priorities. What are the priorities? What can I afford, and what is most important? Those are things we take for granted. The government needs to be, and I say this and this, people have said it, education to our communities. The government needs to set aside more money for mental health issues than
Yeah.
they look at how many mental health hospitals do we have in our country as compared to other places? It's not a priority, it's not a big thing. The people who have private, who are private hospitals, they have private hospitals for only a click. Most of our people are thrown in places, and when you think they are going to a mental hospital, throw them in Mathare and other small places like that. But
Yeah.
what quality of care is given there?
Yeah.
Are we equipping families? Sometimes families can actually take care of their own, but what help are we giving them? They come to the clinics, we identify he's depressed, but they don't have insurance. How are we equipping families to do health care? Home health care is there for people with diabetes. It is there
Yeah.
for people with COVID. What home health care do we have for people with mental illness?
Yeah.
None. Nobody has actually thought about that. I'm not ashamed to say that. It's not a priority. But how sad it is when, like our sister says, it is now on the increase. It is just, and my fear is just like HIV exploded on us. I'm sorry to say that mental illness is exploding in leaps and bounds, and we are not equipped.
Yeah.
So just as COVID is taking lives, and we are paying attention to that and we are announcing it, you can see the numbers reflected here in the US. We see them every 2 minutes. You hear that so many people are infected, so many have died, so many are on ventilators. You will never see those figures for the mentally ill. That, for me, as a mental health provider, as an advocate for the mentally sick, it bothers me inside out. And I would say that it needs to bother all of us, because
Yeah.
if it is not you, it is your sister, it's your brother, it's your
Yeah.
toddler, it's a grandchild. So we cannot close our eyes and say it is, it's okay to pass. It's not passing. It's getting more. It's eating. It is eating into the fabric of our community. But we
Yeah.
choose to say, we have hidden the disabled. We are now
Mm.
hiding the mentally ill. We don't talk about it. We hide them.
It's a shame, I think.
People come to visit. Yeah, the shame. But what are we doing about it? People come
Yeah.
to visit your house and you lock this person in a room with a key just because he's mentally ill. He will shame you. For how long?
I think, like you said, it's important for community education. It's very, very important. And also, I just thought about the lady asking about diaspora. I just thought here there's crisis numbers, like, I don't know, for suicidal lines. And I just wondered, I mean, maybe that's something that could happen back in Kenya. However, like you said, it's a long way that we have to come, that we need to come. I mean, there's a lot that needs implementing. And first of all, we must start with the government. The government needs to spend more money on mental health. And I've been an advocate of domestic abuse. I must also add on domestic abuse, and let's not make it normal. Let's normalize it. So, Dr. Penny, I just want to thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you. I think we've covered all questions. The last one was, where can people experiencing suicidal thoughts get support? I don't know if you answered that one as we close.
I think, like you said, here in the diaspora, we have hotlines for somebody feeling suicidal, a line you can call on behalf of somebody. I want to say that, again, back to the community and the families, let us learn one another. Be observant of your sister or your brother or the people around, even your co-workers.
Yeah.
Because even at work, I remember an incident here where somebody was relieved of their work in a justified way, but he was so angry. He went back home, got a gun, came back, killed the manager, and killed another 6 people in a company. Then killed himself. So it starts not just in the house, but also in your workplace. Please be observant and don't judge. You don't know why people are doing what they are doing. We need a community that is less compassionate than judgmental.
Yeah.
Less compassionate than condemning. Because, I keep on saying, and the reason I open up and say that I was that person, people who know me, some of them have asked me, I would never have thought that you are depressed. I would never have thought that you are going through domestic violence, because you look like a role model you are a role model to many of us. We survived because of you. Our marriages are there because of what you told us, because I was covering up by my own shame. So the community needs to be open to that. We also have a lot of organizations that are coming, and my sister Joyce is there. Depression for newly delivered women, postpartum depression, that is an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
My sister Joyce has an organization like that is dealing with postpartum depression, and a lot of people don't know it. Women give birth, they are going through depression. And we are talking about, after all, you have just delivered, your back is hurting, this is hurting. It's normal, and we ignore them. And then you hear they are refusing to nurse their babies. They are doing weird things. Please pay attention, because I know for a fact at one time, out of my 4 deliveries, for one of them, because of the things that were happening around me, I almost didn't want anything to do with my baby.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are small, small things. We let people, women, pay attention to one another.
Yeah.
Let us give our men permission to say they are hurting.
Oh, yeah.
Remove this stigma of telling our men don't cry.
Yeah.
What do you expect when a man loses a mother or a father, or loses a wife or a child, and you're telling them not to weep? You shame them?
Mm-hmm.
That is cruel. So there, I could go on and on and on. You know, let us support people, let us be available, and most
Yeah.
of all, let us realize that what is happening to Penny and
Mm-hmm.
to Catherine and John and Jane could
Yeah.
easily, you may be the next one in the queue. Again, let us equip, empower, and encourage people to talk about these things. Remove the shame, the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Remove remove the myths about mental illness, or because you are cursed, or because you did that, because you did that, or you need to go and slaughter a goat and slaughter a white cow. All those things. And instead of doing the right thing, you are telling them to do all kinds of weird things just to have the fun. Mental
Yeah.
illness is not fun. It is a reality that we need to find to. I have looked at the way we are dealing with COVID-19. As much as COVID-19 is bad, I have been sitting here in my room at times and saying, I wish people would deal with mental health 20 and 21 with a real sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Because as many as we are losing to COVID, as many as that we are losing to mental illness. But we are not talking about it. For me, it makes me sad.
Yeah.
Because there are many that are dying of as a result of what is happening in society. They don't have COVID, but they are dying. But we are not even talking about them.
Yeah.
They die unidentified. They die unrecognized. We bury them quietly. They don't have a story. They don't have an epitaph. I don't know how seriously I can put this. And the more I talk about it, Catherine, the more emotional I get about it, because as one who has been in that room, as one
Mm.
who has been in that journey, I feel for my sisters and my brothers who are going through this today. And I know there are many, they are numerous, they don't have a name, they don't have a label. And it is sad because they are leaving children behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are leaving widows and widowers behind. Had we paid attention the way we are paying about COVID, there are many who should be there raising their families.
Yeah.
There are many who should not have died, like that young lady in our country who threw herself and her children in a dam. That should
Yeah.
never have happened.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that are happening because of mental illness can be prevented. And
Yeah.
they are more easier to prevent than COVID. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Penny. One last comment. Joyce Washira says, thank you for the compassionate comment, community you talked about. She likes that. And Zina Masharia says, Reverend Dr. Penny, thanks a lot for the lesson. Points well taken. I want to thank our audience for joining us. It's been a pleasure. These are difficult topics that we've talked about. But I also want to thank you, Dr. Penny, for sitting with us, sharing your experience of abuse and how it led you into depression, and also your 2 attempted suicide. I do know that wasn't easy for you to discuss. So thank you, our audience, once again for joining us. Join us next time for another episode of African Women Empowerment Network, where we believe that if we empower one woman, we empower a generation, we empower another woman, we empower a nation. Thank you so much, Dr. Penny. And thank you to our guests. Judith says, thanks, Catherine and Dr. Penny, for the presentation. I wish many more women would listen into this. I also wish the same. And thank you so much. Join us next time.